I'm Amy Connolly. I'm an occupational therapist and assistive technology specialist that serves SETC, the Special Ed Tech Center. And I also am the AT specialist in the Bellingham Public Schools in Washington. Excited to tell you about a partnership between SETC and SETBC, which is kind of an equivalent organization in British Columbia. And the topic that we're going to explore today is this link between our resources, our book collection, and we'll go into what that is if you haven't heard of it, as well as the clicker activities that we have published together. As I mentioned, the purpose of our time today is to check out the Comprehensive Literacy for All book collection, the brand new search page published by SETC, and the clicker resources that are related to the book collection published by SETBC. And you can come back to these links to find those resources, but we're going to go into more detail in these slides. So for anyone who hasn't heard of the Comprehensive Literacy for All book collection, these are materials that have been created by a very dedicated volunteer, Barb Lark, who is a wonderful retired SLP and volunteer extraordinaire. She's also an AAC specialist. We'll hear more from her about the why behind the book collection and what is it. So in general, you're going to find kind of activity plans and resources that allow us to implement strategies related to comprehensive literacy. And I am referring to the book by Dr. Erickson and Dr. Copenhaver, which I don't have pictured here in this slide deck. I hope you've heard of it. It's been a real game changer for most of us in the field. So let's hear from Barb about why she created this resource.
When I retired after 37 years of working as an SLP and focusing on assistive technology and augmentative communication, I knew I wasn't done. When I thought back about the kids who made me the happiest, the kids that I found the most intriguing, the students that really fed my heart, touched my heart, those were the kids with the most significant learning and communication challenges. So I thought, what can I do to stay involved in the field and support those kiddos? And luckily at that same time, Karen Erickson and David Copenhaver, they published the book Comprehensive Literacy for All. And in reading that book, I just got so excited about their focus on meaningful literacy activities, meaningful literacy opportunities and experiences for students with the greatest challenges who are at emerging literacy levels, and also the strategies that are evidence-based, the strategies that they know work with that particular group of students. So I thought, well, what can I do that with my retired time that in this area, because I found it so exciting. And I thought, I've been working with educators, teachers, paraprofessionals, SLPs, OTs, PTs, specialist teachers, parents for so many years who were so dedicated and so smart. And so I thought, what do I have that they don't have right now? And of course, the answer is time. So I thought, well, I'll just take these books that I have around me, these picture books that I have around me, and I had quite a few picture books that were for older students because that had been an interest of mine. And I thought, I have the time to analyze them and to think about how these strategies for comprehensive literacy for all could be applied to those books, and how to think of activities that would keep our kids with the biggest learning challenges most engaged. And so I took time to analyze books and to develop activities for each of the books, thinking one of the strategies is multiple readings. And so if you read a book 4 days in a row, what are 4 different purposes that you can read that book for? Knowing that my biggest background is in communication and knowing that shared reading is all about interaction and engagement. So that was a part of all of the books. And then I thought, well, I also have time to make some materials that I know that teachers and don't have time for, and that maybe parents didn't have access to the software for. So I decided, since this is to be used with core vocabulary, to emphasis building core vocabulary for flexible communication, I can analyze books and see what core words are they good for, and what fringe vocabulary can help support as you're reading those books. And then I just started to play around with Clicker, and I found I had some time and played around with Clicker, creating some writing grids to go along with these books. Not all of them, but some of them. I could do that too. Of course, I couldn't do it alone. I had to have a lot of support, and I had support from local assistive technology specialists in my area that I was fortunate enough to work with, and with the Special Education Technology Center, support to get things available through your website. And then with Sam and Dima making them searchable, making this book collection searchable. I started with about 20 books, and I'm about up to a little over 250 right now, and always wanting more books. So yeah, so that's my why.
So starting with the why, hopefully just gives you a sense of what this resource is designed to do. And now we're going to look a little closer.
When I retired
at what is it? And noticing that some of those captions might not have been very accurate. So I'm going to turn them off and hope that our automatic caption is better.
So
this is going to be just a 2.5-minute video that gets more into the nuts and bolts.
What I've done is I've suggested activities that are based on the literacy strategies from the book. And so the activity plans include strategies about comprehension and vocabulary and phonemic awareness and some alphabet knowledge. So these are based on those strategies. And assuming that a book is going to be read multiple times, there are 4 different activities that are suggested, but they're just suggestions. They're just really more or less to give teachers ideas of what they want to do with the book. The first activity for each book is shared reading, and with suggestions for car and crowd strategies to be used. Everybody can benefit from shared reading strategies where the emphasis is on understanding, and the emphasis is on engagement, and the emphasis is on interaction. With that in mind, when I'm looking at the books, when I'm analyzing the books, I'm thinking, what core vocabulary can be used with these books? And then is there fringe vocabulary that it would be nice to have in addition to the core vocabulary? And much of the fringe vocabulary for students who use augmentative communication systems is going to be in their system. But for kids who don't use augmentative communication systems, or maybe just developing augmentative communication systems, but they benefit from visual supports to their learning, visual supports for language comprehension, visual supports to help with expression. I've created, for each of the books, I've created potential fringe vocabulary words. My idea is that you'd probably take those words and cut them up and use them in a variety of ways, not as a communication board, but as communication visual supports. And then in addition to that, I've added clicker activities for a lot of the books to just give other alternative access ways to engage in reading, writing, and vocabulary. The activity plans don't include any activity-specific communication boards, because the idea is that you use core vocabulary and augmentative systems as your basis for communication.
So I wanted to share those personal explanations of the resource, because Barb is the creator, if I've made too many assumptions about your knowledge of comprehensive literacy or this book collection, please feel free to chime in with questions in the chat. I'm going to proceed because I want to just share some demonstrations of the resources, but please let me know if I can clarify anything so far. And we'll return to that subtlety that Barb just referenced around a communication system versus the resources in the book collection. Okay.
So what I've done is I've suggested.
So the book collection.
The special education technology.
As we mentioned, it's over 250 books, and Barb every day is eager to hear your requests. If you have a specific book that you would like to have analyzed and included in the collection. And since it's grown so much, SETC has created this wonderful search page on their website. If anyone is familiar with the book collection from years past, you used to go through a pretty layered pathway on the website to find these materials, and now it's front and center. And I think we'll see that here in the video. So you'll be able to search by title, age, grade bands, strategies, keywords or themes, and you can even borrow the books from SETC. So here's a about 3-minute video showing you the new website that allows you to search the collection.
Center has a new feature, the Comprehensive Literacy for All book collection. This collection aims to provide meaningful experiences with accessible print that fit into a systematic approach to teaching emergent literacy. So for best practices on emergent literacy, we have resources down below that you'll want to be sure to check out, including a module to do on your own time. To use the book collection, you'll want to search for a book. You can search by the title, the age range, the literacy strategies you're hoping to target, or you can search for something about the category.
Once you find the book you want to read, scroll down to find the activity planning link. Here you'll find resources and ideas for shared and guided reading activities with your students. We know that reading a book multiple times allows for opportunities to have different purposes for reading. Listed here are example reading purposes, what might be targeted, and how the student can participate. For example, encouraging students to ask for a word definition when they hear a word they don't know, and your target might be vocabulary words. For this reading, you'd provide a way for students to ask what a word means, using a voice output button, AAC system, have some core vocabulary available. Many of the activity planners will have visuals to support the activities. Remember, the goal is to use the AAC system the students have while doing these activities. You'll also find links to short instructional videos for tools and strategies. And every activity planner has ideas for expansion. Sometimes it's science, cooking, writing, or maybe even acting.
At the bottom of every activity planning board, you can find the shared reading, alphabet knowledge, phonological awareness, shared writing, and self-selected reading information to learn a little bit more about what this means. You'll notice that some books can be added to the lending library cart. That's because you can borrow these to use with students. Just make sure you scroll down to see activity planning link. And some books will have clicker activities available. If you have clicker available with your school district, you can download these. Another way to find the clicker activities is on the SETC website. They've offered to host our Comprehensive Literacy for All clicker grids on their website. You'll want to check them out. None of this would be possible without retired SLP and dedicated volunteer Barb Lark. Thanks, Barb. So check out the Comprehensive Literacy for All book collection, log into our website, and check out the over 200 books we have to offer.
Here's another view of that website with SETC and the alternative way of searching, which is by title. Let's hop over to the website now. Hopefully, you're still seeing my browser window with the SETC website. And as Sarah Kinsella, the narrator of the video, mentioned, the book collection is available via this button. And when we come down here, we have these options for searching by specific parameters or by the title search. You know exactly what book you're looking for. So once you have found the book that you're looking for example, I really love the book More Than Words. I found this book via the title search because I knew exactly what I was looking for. And this book is beautiful because it features a variety of ways that people communicate. Scrolling down is where I find the link to the activity planning sheet. And we have some options for finding the clicker sets. Now, this is a work in progress. Soon those links are going to be even more front and center, right next to the picture of the book. But for now, you might need to scroll down. And you might find that some of the clicker activities are still published on Google Drive. That's kind of an intermediate solution until we can get everything over to SETBC, because we really do love the usability of the SETBC website. So as an example here with the book More Than Words, we found the activity planning sheet. And as we heard, there are repeat readings, so repetition with variety, and a suggested purpose for each of those readings, and ideas for how our students would participate in each shared reading experience or guided reading. It will vary book by book, but everything should start with shared reading because everyone benefits from that. So here in a example with More Than Words, we have a suggested idea of identifying different ways to communicate and write those on a whiteboard. I'm jumping around a little bit, but you could use well, let me save that example. Actually, I think I want to back up and have Barb talk to us about these planning sheets so that we can get a really good sense of the features, and then we'll go into our demonstration. Excuse me, jumping around a little bit.
Here's an example of the activity plan for the book, The Grand Hotel of Feelings. And this book, just for awareness, is probably for students in intermediate, like third grade up, but it goes well into high school and beyond. I've got a table that shows guided reading and word study ideas for this book. And so it's got 4 different suggested activities for reading 4 different days for 4 different purposes. And the left-hand column says what's the reading purpose for that activity. The center column is what's our goal area. And the third column is how do we expect students, or how do we anticipate for and encourage students to participate and engage with the book. So the first activity number 1 for the first reading is to do a shared reading. You can do it individually, you can do it with a group, using car and crowd strategies, and you can model with core vocabulary and have fringe vocabulary there to help support it as well. And what you'd expect students to do during this reading is you'd be doing anticipating waiting time, encouraging students to comment, to answer or ask questions throughout the reading. So you'd be looking for their engagement and communication during the reading, using visual supports like core vocabulary and fringe and or personal AAC systems.
I'm recognizing there's some redundancy here, repetition with variety, right? I'm just going to jump ahead to where Barb speaks to some of the different features below.
Or AAC and or core plus fringe vocabulary. What's your favorite way to feel? And have them listen for that feeling and identify it when they hear it. And
so predictable chart writing is embedded in many of these activity planning sheets. You know, I do think that we may have covered these topics already, and since this video is available, I want to honor your time and get to some of the more unique demos.
And then
we'll shift and approach. Also, if you'd like to hear from Barb about her favorite book, that video is available on the SETC YouTube playlist.
So the things that I like most about—
here we go. We have about half an hour to talk about this pairing of the book collection and the clicker sets. So you've learned now about how to go to the SETC website, find the book, explore the planning sheets, and now we want to talk about the SETBC resources page. Maybe could you indicate in the chat if you have used this website before? The resources page is so well designed. We are going to visit it together. I'm going to clear my filters so it looks just like when you would come to it for the first time. Yes, great. I see somebody has used it. It is so full of riches. So if we were to, for example, from the book collection page with SETC, we have this link over to it, and that link has some embedded filters so that we can find the clicker sets. Here's another way to do it. We can choose SETC as an affiliate. That's probably my favorite way, but I recognize that SETBC has so many more clicker materials, so you might also want to just look for clicker materials using that filter. The way that I am using SETC as an affiliate to narrow down our clicker sets related to the book collection. And as you can see, there's more than words. We have Pete the Cat. I'll clear up. Okay, so Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. That's a book in the collection. And we see a visual preview, the book cover, and kind of a sense of what that clicker activity would look like, a description, and the actual clicker file that you can only open with the clicker software. So you can also get a sense of what type of set it is using that icon. That orange yellow is an indicator of the connect set. So if I just click on it, now my computer is I have an automatic download, and when I open it, it knows that's a clicker file because I have clicker on this computer. So this is our Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons clicker connect set. And characteristically in clicker, we can have auditory preview.
How many?
We can enter our text by selecting
How many
the cell.
buttons did Pete's favorite shirt have? How many buttons did Pete's favorite shirt have?
And by adding punctuation, we get that automatic text to speech. And then because it's a connect set, there's embedded choice, and the student could answer
2.
that question here. Oh,
My buttons.
There's 4 groovy buttons. So you can obviously use the keyboard to enter text, word prediction, the clicker set. So this is a connect set related to Pete the Cat. Let's minimize that clicker. Another book. I know that the Mo Willems books are really, Elephant and Piggy, those are really popular. And so this is from the SETBC website. There's a description here of the two different types of sets. We have a choose the words that rhyme activity and I can statements. And again, those are just available right down here. And just to save us some time, you can see that preview. Now, I wanted to talk about how we can build on those resources. I mean, you can always download them and use them as templates and continue adapting them. I also meant to give a little overview for anyone who hadn't used Clicker. We do have a variety of Clicker set types with different degrees of scaffolding. And then the embedded features that I referenced, like speech support, voice notes, word prediction. Earlier, I mentioned this book, More Than Words, and this looks like a sentence set, I think, with a model here. It's a sentence set as well as a book. This has a theme of like communication, which can include self-talk. So I'm trying to show you how you might use learning grids to continue building on an idea. So I searched, thinking about this theme of communication, I searched learning grids, the repository of pre-made activities with Cricksoft, using the word talk. Communication only brought me one result, but talk provided me with some more self-talk type, positive self-talk activities. You can use a planning board. Looks like when I searched communication, I got this planning board, which is initially designed to describe features of a good friend. That can be related to the book, but you could also describe different ways your friends communicate in such a mind map. So I hope that shows how you can build off of these unique materials that Barb has created and shared and expand it and save yourself some time through the learning grids, which is the ready-made Clicker activities. Another way you might use them is to build vocabulary with descriptive teaching using a board or word banks. And the analytics are a very nice feature because it helps us understand how the writing was constructed. What tools did the student use? Let's take a moment to go back to the More Than Words activities and just look at them in Clicker together. So, as I mentioned, we have More Than Words. We have a planning sheet with a shared reading idea, encouraging students to use their AAC systems to comment spontaneously throughout a shared reading experience. The next day you could read the book, identifying different ways students communicate, and maybe use that planning board from Clicker to capture those different ways. You could then on the subsequent day explore how each system could be used to talk about feelings or a common theme, and different ways of saying things. And then that brings us to predictable chart writing as another option. Before we explore predictable chart writing, I want to again just show you how we would obtain a Clicker file. I'm clicking on it down there, downloaded, and when I open it, I can see already it's going to be a sentence set. And characteristically in Clicker, we can decide if our model is going to be visible or auditory, momentary or static. And this is a sentence set which supports building sentences one at a time. And we have the visuals. The additional material here that Barb shared is a Clicker book. I really love the Clicker books. I'm going to open it in Clicker again. Just love how easy it is to find the files here on this website and then put them into practice. Looks like it opened here in the background. So in a Clicker book, we have the optional feature of having
More than words to say what you mean.
having the text read aloud. That's an element that you can add quickly or remove. Having a big image here, these images could be replaced with the people in that setting. And it's, speaking to those themes in the book. And I think the power of having these multiple entry points surrounding similar content is a way of getting at that repetition with variety and increasing engagement. As you can see on the end of the activity planning sheet for more than words, predictable chart writing was recommended as an activity, and that could be a whole nother week. Beth Poss has also published a guide with Cricksoft to predictable chart writing in Clicker. And predictable chart writing, for anyone who hasn't heard of it, is a structured shared reading experience that I kind of think of it as Mad Libs, but it's really so much more than that. And by doing it in Clicker, you can also take that content and easily make the class book. There's a lot of different ways of inserting the writing or the words people want to use in their chart. Now, if I can give you some words of advice from using Clicker in now multiple school districts, there are many ways of saving and sharing and printing the materials. Those options are embedded in the software, and they can be customized under the options for file management. Those include using a network location, cloud storage, which is what I use. I do go between all three cloud storage services, but you can just pick one, and just downloading a Clicker file and emailing it. So let's say you're exploring the SETBC website on a device that doesn't have Clicker installed. You can still capture those files, put them somewhere where they're accessible once you're on a device with that software. So this is a link to the Cricksoft page, which gives more advice on sharing files. If you're unfamiliar with Clicker, the basics on the Cricksoft website are wonderful. Particularly the Clicker basics, because it allows you to understand the software in terms of the specific supports, whether it's writing, reading, vocabulary building, planning your writing. There are very short videos that help you get to know the features, and tons of webinars that they've recorded, as well as live webinars that are ongoing. SETC has a playlist on YouTube. Well, they've got a wonderful YouTube channel, and the playlist for comprehensive literacy includes some of the videos we watched today, as well as other videos, like Barb commenting on her favorites. And we also have a playlist that's dedicated to Clicker software. You can find lots of different webinars we've done in the past about Clicker there. In addition, through SETC, we are able to provide some 6-month trials with Clicker. There's also a kind of bespoke training website that you can visit if you are participating in that trial. And it's kind of a way of accessing content on the Cricksoft website, but a little bit more targeted towards our audience. Is anyone here in the group today participating in the Clicker pilot or trial with their school district, given support from SETC. I'd be curious to hear in the chat. In continuing in the theme of support from SETC, we have some really wonderful modules that teach they're called Unlocking Literacy, and it's all about the comprehensive literacy for all approach, starting with universal tools and strategies, going through alphabet phonological awareness, emergent reading and writing, and further, there are modules on conventional literacy. I just really love the universal tools and strategies because of how it grounds us in some foundational techniques. So I find those to be a really powerful resource. Even if you don't do the whole module, you can just pluck a video out because they're open. They're meant to be remixed and to serve your purposes. I highly recommend checking out the OER, Open Educational Resource Commons, and looking for the Unlocking Literacy modules. I hope it wasn't too fast. So feel free to tell me where you're coming from, how you're using Clicker, whether you see these resources as fitting into your practice. And if you want me to help home in on a more specific part of it all, I'm happy to do that with this remaining time. I'm so glad it was informative. Thank you all for coming. Our pleasure. We're really happy that the resources are being used widely. And please let us know if we can add to them to fit your practices and the books that you enjoy teaching with.